Now, in case you didn't realize, that mental health is basically a euphemism for mental disorder. We're getting told all the time, if you've got mental health. What does that mean, if you've got mental health? Well, it means you'll have some sort of depression, some sort of anxiety. Maybe you'll have even psychosis or bipolar or some other so-called mental disorder, some kind of pathology that's being euphemized as mental health. And so all the programs that seem to be going around about mental health first aid. What is mental health first aid? How to spot in the workplace or maybe some other place when someone's having some sort of disorder, some sort of pathology. And basically the idea is once you've spotted and identified them, then you can basically signpost them off, off the premises. Go and get yourself dealt with. I'm beginning to think that this is possibly, we're going about this the wrong way. Now, what does that mean? It means that it's a great thing that being able to express that you are sad or that you are disappointed or that you're having some difficulties and you're really having a bad time at the moment, that you can express that freely among your friends and colleagues and in society, I think is a great thing. Okay, so let's say you broke your leg, you're able to say, yeah, I broke my leg, so that's good. But we don't go around saying that we've broken our leg every 5 minutes. Right? Oh, we broke our leg. Yeah, I broke my leg last year. Oh, when I was 13, I also broke my leg. And then I broke my leg in my arm when I was 17. And it begins to become an obsession of talking about these things that happen to us. And that's still all very well, in my opinion, if we're also being able to express how we can actually live a high-quality, functionable life. If we're going to be focusing down all the time on these so-called cultural pathologies, then we end up that's the only conversation that we're having. And although this might be the beginning of the journey, I'm bringing out a yellow card on how we deal with mental health, because I feel that we might be going down a road that later on will take us away off task and a way off piste, or where we should actually be going. I mean, I get really annoyed these days when people talk about, get out of your comfort zone and into your uncomfortable zone. Get out of your comfort zone. I mean, I don't know anybody that's in a comfort zone. Life is full of being uncomfortable. So what actually is this comfort zone that people keep talking about? It might be an avoidance zone, and we have to kind of move in, if you like, to a place of courage. But it's not moving zones. It's about how we actually manage our own lives. So just let me check a second and see if we've got how this works with regards to... So hi, Neville, and hi, Amy. I'm glad that you've joined us. So basically, I'm talking about how we're dealing with society's reaction to what's called mental health, which I'm putting forward is maybe a euphemism for pathological disorders. And in my opinion, human condition is not a pathology. It's about learning to manage what happens in our everyday lives. And sometimes that might be emotions that we feel sad, disappointed, frustrated, and it might be emotions that take us up to joy and elation and, just generally feeling good. And these things come and go. During the day, we might be going up and down in a cycle. And that can happen also during the week, the month, and the year, and of course our lifetime. It doesn't mean when we're having feelings of disappointment and frustration and sadness that there's something wrong with us. And I'm getting the feeling that, this is what society is basically telling us. And it's told us that in the past that you're not allowed to feel sad. You're not allowed to feel these uncomfortable feelings. And so, go to the doctor, explain there's something wrong with you, and get some sort of therapy. And now the fact that mental health is being able to be expressed freely, basically what we're just saying more of is you've got more of a disorder, and you can now tell everybody. I'm beginning to think that this is a way that's going to lead us down a path that's not going to be very useful for us. Rather than express in schools and in parenting and in the workplace that this is part of normal living, let's see how we can now manage this. This would be something useful in dealing with mental health. It's dealing with human condition. It's dealing with human health. And it's about building our inner strengths. It's about building the way that we can manage when we feel disappointed. In fact, if we didn't have these emotions down here, we probably wouldn't feel these emotions up here. And so it is vital that we're able to experience the full repertoire of our emotions and how these emotions actually affect our actions in everyday life. So I just wanted to open that conversation with you and say, what do you think about that? So you can put comments in. If you're watching here right now, put a comment and ask me a question and tell me your experiences about managing those emotions. I'm not saying for 1 second that we might not need some sort of pharmacotherapy at one point in our lives if we feel things have just become overwhelmed. But this is not a fix. This might put us into a state where we can start to deal and manage and learn how to manage with our everyday emotions. I was sitting in a cafe the other day and I heard two people talking, and one said to the other, you know, I've just been to my doctor and up to my dose of antidepressants. I'm really hoping this time that it'll fix out the problems in my life. Well, you know, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're not going to get your problems fixed in your life by taking some sort of magic bullet. You're going to have to do the work. Now, that pill might help you get into that state where you feel you can have some sort of motivation. You can get up in the morning and actually do the work. But the work needs to be done, and it can't all be relied on a bottle. So Neville's telling me he totally agrees, but society likes to label people. Yeah. If people accept that we have ups and downs, and that's totally normal, absolutely, Neville. So this is exactly the thing. Society likes to label things because it's convenient. But there's a boundary to how much these labels will be useful. And what the problem is with labels is it becomes a kind of a stigma. So the problem is here that we're trying to get rid of the stigma. We're beginning to open up and talk about our emotions much more freely than we used to. And that's a wonderful thing. But when we just focus on that, these labels become stigmas. And it becomes almost trendy to have a mental disorder to share. And I think this is something that is becoming maybe a little bit out of control. I'm hearing young kids, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, saying, you know, I haven't had a panic attack yet. Well, of course you haven't. You shouldn't be having panic attacks at 10, 11, 12 years old. If at all, any type of anxiety. So when they start learning this stuff and we start talking about it openly and we start not taking responsibility for what's happening and who's around us, and it becomes a free-for-all, then we're actually teaching our children that anxiety and panic attacks and something is something that you expect to happen to you in a kind of a negative way. No, we should be teaching them something else. We should be teaching them that anxiety is something that maybe is a message from your body that's pushing you forward into something. That maybe you should take note of those messages and move forward into something much more productive and useful. And avoiding these and running away from these by taking pills or by doing some other distracting behavior might be detrimental to you. In fact, leaning into these things and accepting these things and acknowledging that these things are happening and moving from an avoidant position into a courageous position and saying, okay, you know, this just doesn't feel comfortable, but it's really important for me to do, so I'm going to go off and do it. I'll give you a personal example. This has been going around in my mind for a while now, and I've been wanting to come on here and actually talk to you about it. But it was very, very hard for me to do this. I felt so uncomfortable. I didn't know if, if this is the right thing to do, if I should be expressing my opinion at all. If I, have worked it out properly and thought it out properly, and if people were willing to actually hear what I've got to say. But it came to a head when I heard these people talking, and I see these little kids talking about they haven't had panic attacks. And I thought, well, I've got to come on and express something. Let's start a conversation. Hi, Ziva. Ziva Greber's now joined us. Yeah, Neville says people like having the stigma. Well, there is something in that. There's something about people that go and say, you know what, at least I now know that there's something wrong with me. I was wondering what was going on, and now the doctor has told me I've got, severe depression, or I've got, general anxiety disorder. What a relief. Now I have something to grab onto. But it has to be taken in context. Where is that general anxiety disorder that you have in your body? Where is that? Where is the blood tests or the biochemical test that says that you have these things? Well, there isn't any. It doesn't exist. And this is, I think, something that we have to realize. That we may have these uncomfortable feelings and body sensations and thoughts, but managing them and doing things that are important to us while we're having them is actually the scientifically researched way of managing them in the best way possible. Trying to avoid them, trying to run away from them, or trying to fight them actually makes them more powerful. So knowing that I have now general anxiety disorder and hanging on to this in a very attached way is probably not likely going to help me in the long run actually manage this. Hi Sharon, thanks for joining. So I'm basically talking about how our attitude is to mental health and how we actually deal with it in our society. The context of our lives is extremely important. We're seeing a growth of people having very uncomfortable lives. Now, this might be because there's a new way of diagnosing these things, but we have to look in the wider context. There's a lot of children and students in schools and universities that are having a hard time getting through their studies. And if we start labeling them as mental health cases and they need treatment, then I think we may be going down the wrong way. We have to look at the context. We have to look at the pressure that we're putting our children under. And if, putting under the pressures of exams from very early ages, from being very particular about forecasting from a very young age if they're going to make the grades to go to the best universities. This kind of pressure, not everybody is able to withstand if you don't give them the tools to deal with that pressure. So you're going to get some people on this side of the normality curve that, just walk anything, so nothing bothers them. And you're going to get some people on the tail end on the other sides that just can't deal with very much. But the bulk of the people, you have to give some sort of tools on how to deal with these emotions that come up before exams, these emotions that come up when we're being told all the time that we have to continually study and do our homework and get everything done, because at the end of it, you have to pass with A stars and get to a particular Ivy League red brick kind of university. And if you don't, well, then that's maybe not looked upon as acceptable in our institution. Same in the workplace. Most people in the workplace are going through some sort of uncomfortable, anxious type of day. And that includes the management, it includes the ownership, it includes the shareholders, it includes the workers. We're all going through the same thing. So why not understand this a little bit better and train our workers how to deal with this stuff rather than just spot that they've got a problem and cart them off to some sort of therapy. If the workplace understood that this is part of the work, this is part of being human, this is part of going to work, and the pressure is part of it, then we may understand and be more caring and nurturing towards each other. Okay, I think that's enough for my first Facebook conversation, let's say. And I'd just like to say that if you have any comments on this, put it in, and we'll see if there's something that we can continue to have this conversation again. Thanks for listening.